Just like that Edgar Allan Poe poem said, when I retired alone. Okay, that's not how the poem went, but it does pertain to what I'm going to talk about today. Well, I moved undercover because of the rain, even though it looks like it's clearing up now. So let's talk about this life of solitude for one, while at the same time, the life of envy for the other. So of course, retirement is a big change. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you slice it up, retirement is a big change for all parties involved. But when one spouse is retired or is leaving the workforce and no longer, doing anything, I should not say not doing anything. I should say, basically being at home or doing something else while the other spouse continues to work. Yeah, it can cause some. I don't want to say it can cause. Well, it can cause some animosity. My wife tells me every day she's jealous of me. But at the same time, it can cause some structural changes to your relationship. And we'll talk about that. How do we deal with that? Well, we'll discuss that in this video. So the biggest issue comes with, one person's sudden access to free time while the other person sees this access but is still working. They don't have that access to free time. But they get to experience the other partner's free time though. So that can cause some issues. And I believe that there is one thing that is most important over everything else in getting through this phase of your life. So stay tuned till the end when I will reveal that. So in my particular case, I was supposed to retire long after my wife. She was going to retire at the end of this school year, which, by the way, is in 2 weeks from now, and I was going to retire in March of next year. Well, as things turned out, I ended up retiring early, and I am now waiting for her to retire. But overall, we're not that far off. We're only within a couple of months of each other when it comes to retiring. Most people, their span between one spouse retiring and the other is quite a lot longer. In fact, AARP did a study and they found that only 11% of people will retire together, which is, not very much. And on top of that, for those couples who are in retirement, over 62% have a span between their retirements of a year or greater. So think about that. Nearly 2/3 of the people that do retire, they're retiring more than a year apart. There could be good reason for that. One person may be working because they want to retain health benefits, health insurance. They may not be eligible to retire yet. So there are reasons why that would happen. So unless you're planning on retiring together, I will say that most often it just doesn't work out that way. So this is a change that everybody, I believe, or most people will have to go through. So how do we deal with this? How do we manage this? Well, it's not really a crisis. It's not a problem. It's just an adjustment. So one way that you can manage this is that you can create a balance in your responsibilities. Now, when I say that, most people have already created that in their working life, but now you've got a change in dynamic. So you must also change your responsibilities. And this is not something that you can just, willy-nilly do. These are things that you're going to have to talk about. Little things like, for instance, in my particular situation, I've taken on more responsibility of shopping for food. Now, admittedly so, I'm not very good at shopping for food. So therefore, I find myself getting 1 or 2 meals at a time because I'm just not that great at it. But nonetheless, I've taken on a little bit more of that responsibility. Another thing is I've now taken on more responsibility with making sure laundry gets done. Now, granted, did we work together with this before? Yes, we did. But what I'm saying here is now I have this free time and I have to make some changes in order to negotiate and navigate this new lifestyle. Because remember, one spouse is still working while the other spouse is not. That does bring up feelings. The other thing is, we will discuss what works best for us. So that's important as well. You have to discuss with your spouse how these changes will affect each of you and what you're going to do to compensate for that. For instance, we acknowledge my wife has feelings of, I don't want to say animosity, pretty close to it though, but she tells me every day how jealous she is that I am at home and she's still at work. And I think a lot of it is because she is so near her retirement, she can almost taste it. And then suddenly, I retired before her and I beat her to the punch. So I understand that there's a little bit of jealousy, not so much animosity, but a little bit of jealousy. That's completely understandable because she had plans. You know, she was planning on being at home and me still at work, and she was going to do her own thing, establish her own schedule and do some catching up of certain things at home. And now she's realizing that even though she's reaching this milestone and retiring, I've already beat her to it. And when she does go home, there are some things that are going to have to change because she's no longer going to have the house to herself. She's joining me in the house. So that's a change that we have to deal with, and I think that most other people will too. Along those lines, you want to make sure that when you discuss this, you find a system that works for both of you. You know, it can't be one-sided. We have to work this thing out together because eventually you're both going to be in the same boat together. So if you're in a sinking ship, just remember, you'll both be in that sinking ship. So the goal here is to keep the ship afloat until the other one can get in and you can sail away peacefully into the sunset together. Now, of course, another consideration is everybody goes through these changes in their routine. My routine has changed. My wife's routine has not necessarily changed, but in certain ways it has. So we have to consider those changes in our routine and how we're going to work around those. One of the things that we do is we have developed a kind of ritual ever since we went on our trip to Italy and we had that really good Italian coffee. We have now gotten to the point where every single night I make her and myself a cup of Italian coffee. Now, this Italian coffee is not just, brewed in a pot. We have a mocha pot, and I'll have an overlay of me making this coffee. I think it's pretty fascinating. I've really gotten into this. But we have a mocha pot. I grind the coffee beans. I've gone from a dark roast to a medium roast. So we've really developed this ritual every day of doing this. And after I grind those beans, I will measure it out and put it in the hopper, put in my water that I've already pre-boiled, and then I'll put all that together on the stove, keep the lid up, watch the coffee, I suppose you could call it percolate, and then I gather up the milk and I steam the milk and I froth that milk all up and then I pour it over. The one thing I have not gotten used to yet, I don't know how to do, latte art. So basically I just pour the milk into the coffee. And then we sit down and we drink this wonderful coffee together. Or apart, even in different rooms, we're still enjoying the process. We're enjoying the ritual of it together. So that's something that's changed, but it's something that we've developed since I have been retired and she has not. Because when she gets home, she's tired, she's been working all day, and the least I can do for her anyway is to create an atmosphere of relaxation. I'm gonna cater to her for this. And later on, maybe she'll join in and she'll get better at making this coffee than me. But for right now, I've compensated and I do that each night for her. We've actually come to expect that. Last night, she came home and said, "Hey, we're gonna have coffee tonight?" And I said, "Of course." So that leads us to the next item. How do you move forward together? Because at one point in time, you're both going to be retired, but for right now, we have to come up with some type of interim schedule and interim way of doing things until both of us can reach that point. So first, I would say, my time in the military, I learned this in the military, be flexible. There are going to be some dynamic changes that happen be flexible and willing to accept those changes. Uh, life is, well, life is change. That's the only constant in this life is change and maybe uncertainty and taxes and death, of course. But as far as that goes, and change is a constant. So embrace that change. Embrace your new lifestyle. Embrace your new routines, and do it together. I think that's one of the most important things. The other thing is, and this is something that I'm working on, but it's also to embrace the positive aspects of having a spouse working. So in my particular case, and I can only speak on a personal level, and then I'll cover what my wife says to me anyway after that. But uh, on that level, I enjoy this time that I have at home. I'm trying to get a lot of things done. I've got my honey-do list that's 3 miles long, but at the same time, I'm enjoying the time that I have. If I decide to sit and watch YouTube videos all day, that's what I do. I'm not going to be upset about it. And my wife has not been upset about it either. She understands that this is all part of the process of embracing this new lifestyle. And plus, she'll be there someday soon as well. The other thing that I want to say is that retirement, for both of you anyway, is a journey. It takes a long time. The story has to be told piece by piece. So as it happens to be right now, and in the case of what 89% of people, uh, one person will start that journey before the other. You have to be okay with that. So in our case, I am patiently waiting for my wife to be retired, and I am looking forward for her to her new lifestyle. And that's another thing that I must consider, and I think that everybody should consider this, and that is you have to be willing to allow your spouse that time to adjust. Because I will say, for me, it was an adjustment period, and I suspect that for a spouse, this is going to be an equal adjustment period. And even more so because they've been watching the first person in their retirement life this whole time until they finally get to retire. So I will respect that and allow her to embrace her retirement in the way that she sees fit. If she wants to spend 6 months not getting anything done, so be it. That's what she chooses to do. That's her retirement lifestyle. Whew, the bugs are terrible out here since it's wet outside. Now, before I close, and I should have said this earlier, but I want to say that I got this whole idea because I posted a video and I got a comment from Robert, and he has a YouTube page called Robert's Active Retirement. He made a comment about one spouse retiring before the other, and he was saying, I bet you can't wait till your wife retires in just a few weeks, and I agreed, but that led me to think about this. Exactly. Well, this is a process in itself. So I would like to give a shout out right now to Robert's Active Retirement, and I will post a link in the video description down below. So be sure to follow that link. Go to his page. If you're in the retirement realm or thinking about it, he has a channel talking about his retirement journey and living in a retirement community and in a small town. I really like that concept. So give him a look on his videos. I just wanted to give that shout out to a fellow YouTuber that I guess I'm just starting out, but it can't hurt to help someone else. So at the beginning, I talked about one other thing that's most important, and I think you can probably almost guess what it is. And I will say above everything else, all the plans that you make, everything that you do, your lifestyle changes, the routine that you go through, I believe the one most important thing, just like everything else in this life, especially when it comes to people that share a life together, and that is communication. You must be willing to communicate your thoughts, ideas, plans, and your feelings. That's very important to be able to communicate those items to each other. And the other thing is, this is something that I must deal with because I try to be an active listener, but sometimes I'm not. You want to be an active listener to your spouse's needs, especially if you're the one that retired first, and your spouse has issue with that, then listen to them. It's perfectly normal for them to have an issue with that. It's perfectly normal for them to be jealous. It took me a little bit of time to deal with that. I kept thinking to myself, why is my wife not happy for me? Why is she telling me she's jealous every day? Well, I think she is happy, but it's okay to be jealous as well. She'll get to that point where she's retiring as well. So I hope you got something out of this video. I hope it at least provided food for thought. With that being said, please make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all those things that I probably should have said at the beginning of the video. I'm still learning this YouTube journey thing along with my retirement journey. So until next time, see ya.